Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next edition of Tech Talks here at Glovo. My name is Agata. I work in product operations at Glovo, and I am here to introduce the topic of today and our speakers. So welcome, first of all, and let's start. So when we first started, we had a very simple idea in mind. Give everyone easy access to anything in the city. So saving people life in terms of, delivering items for them in an easy, quick manner, saving their time, saving effort for them was our North Stars at the time, and it still is to this day. So since then, we expanded a little bit beyond our original geography, as you see here. We're operating beyond Spain, we operate beyond Europe. We currently are active in 25 countries, more than 1,500 cities, and we have more than 30 million active users every month. So how do we do that? And what do we actually do? Dudu, come. So hopefully this image should be familiar to most of you. Hopefully you've all seen our app. We operate an app that connects our end users, consumers, our partners who provide the goods, and our couriers who deliver the goods. When we started, we had only one bubble. It was anything. Now we operate a multi-category application. So to deliver that, it takes a village. It takes multiple stakeholders, different business units, and it also is a big part of what product organization does. So how is our product organization looking today? We have 140 people strong department in total, more than 50 teams, and also within that we have over 60 people in our UX department. Wow, that's a lot of people. How that actually translates into landscape of what we're doing. So in this very busy slide behind me, you see various clusters that we are grouped by in responding to different business needs, right? So our teams are grouped by clusters. They have quite large autonomy, but they're also very agile, and they respond to business needs as and when needed. So here you see the main needs that we respond to. And again, in order to operate and make sure that this runs smoothly, we do have certain principles. So how do we make it happen? Our principles are simple. We build from a blank canvas. So we first start with why and understand the opportunity or the problem that we're trying to solve. And we try to innovate and come up with an organic and innovative solution that we deliver to our customers, partners, and couriers. Our overriding principle is maximize simplicity. So taking a complex concept, for example, getting anything, anytime, and trying to put it in a simple, nice way for our consumers to consume. However, we do not, whilst we maximize simplicity, we still very much are very fond of our warm touches and little nuggets that make our brand recognizable and our consumers engaged. And finally, we do take a very holistic approach of to what we do. So we take into account all the impact that our work will have, and we think about the impact it will have on our consumers, on the stakeholder teams that we work with, and as I mentioned, it takes a village to get that alignment and to do so. And for that, we do need a strategy. So it is my very pleasure to introduce our speakers of today, Bruno and Alvaro. who will talk about executing no and low code strategies to product and why do we need a product strategy. So please help me welcome Bruno to the stage.
Thank you, Agata, and thank you everyone for being here today. Today we're going to be talking about executing no and low code strategies. We're going to first go into a bit of a quick introduction. So just so you know who I am, I'm Bruno Muñoz. On this graph that you saw before, I'm the group product manager in the Courier cluster, leading the management and retention group. Before, I've worked in different companies, some larger, some smaller ones, some startup companies, and some corporate that you can see here. That actually, I think, it made me give a bit of a different landscape to see different type of business models and different ways to really build product. That really, I think, it helps me on a day-to-day. Before going into more details, one of the things that I would like to know from you is like, what is your sector? So what is your area so that I can know whether you're in product, tech, any other. So if you can take the QR code and then add your particular area, that would be super helpful to know what we have in our audience, and then later on for the networking time. This is we were talking about the product conversation, but this applies a lot for tech and obviously for non-product and tech, since one of the cases that I'm going to be talking is for non-related, like non-product, non-tech people, really building software products and quality products that can add value to our customers. Maybe it's only for Glovo users, there's our Slido. If not, if not, let's. I think we'll only have results from Glovo, and then we can just raise the hands. Then we can, I don't know if we can check it for, in the meantime, in another laptop or something, if we can ensure that we have access for everyone, because we have another few questions. If not, we do it with a hand. But from the ones that are not from Glovo, since if you don't have access, so how many work in product? I think a big majority data. Other here, that it's anything else but tech, design. And then tech. Well, it's actually quite divided. And design, UX. Very few. Perfect. So this is going to be interesting for the case that we are going to be talking, because I think that we can all create software products, regardless of the position that we take. So today we're going to be talking about first a couple of things or in concept of product strategy and PDP, product development process, and how we can apply this into a real case that I'm going to be talking something that I experienced, and that later on it gave me a different idea. It was my first experience using really no and low code purely strategies, and how you can apply it in your day-to-day. So something like when we talk about product strategy very often, and basically product strategy is the approach that we take as a company, as a product manager, as a leader, into really how are we going to be creating, marketing, selling our products. And basically this actually help us build better products. The better we shape our strategy, the better we'll shape our products. What things do we need to do to succeed when we are actually setting a product strategy? So even if it seems pretty common, but things that we sometimes forget, because this does not apply only to like a company level, but it applies to our product level, the way we manage our engineering teams, the way we manage our design teams, etc., is to first ensure that we are all aligned in the vision and the mission of our product team company. What are we going to achieve? What do we go? Where is our target goal? And what do we do right now? Obviously, on the things that we do, a key thing, and we were talking about it, no, is like, what is the problem that we're solving? Sometimes we focus a lot on solutions. This is my solution. This is my area of ownership. But a lot of the times we forget to really come back and say, what is the problem that I'm solving? Am I solving it in the best way possible? Am I really, really, really focusing on the problem and the customer problems that they have? Or I'm just in this area of expertise, and then I'm developing, iterating without really coming back every single time to really read the vision, the mission, and the problems that you're doing. Obviously, as a company, something super important is like, what is your value proposition? No, what do you do different? What is the value that you're adding to the customer to solve that problem? But not only when we're talking about like marketing opportunities or sizing the opportunity that you're fixing, we're not only talking about like at a company level. This actually should apply to every single thing that we do in any of the products that we're building. Obviously, understanding our competitors and how different we are from them, which other things they're offering, which other things are our customers doing to solve their problems is a key thing when we're thinking about our strategy, because that helps us really define better what are our competitive advantages. How am I different from my competition? Do I launch my product faster? Like the case of ChatGPT. ChatGPT competitive advantage is that they are launching one of the first one with a really quality product. Will they win this war of the Gen AI or not? We don't know. They definitely have built the brand and they are actually having a lot of customers now, but that might be a competitive advantage today that might not be in the future, since not being the first is always a competitive advantage, but sometimes it is entering a new market, etc. So something that we hear very often is that PMs are called mini CEOs of their own product. And why do we say that? I think that the main reason why we say that is because we need to apply everything that I just mentioned in any of the actions that we take. Whenever we're thinking about the problem that we're solving, we have to come back to see what is the strategy that we've set for our team, for our group, for our product, for our organization, for our company, and really trying to build backwards from there. That actually helps you really define a good strategy and going in a really good direction. So that's why we need to bring this and we need to empower everyone that works with us to really ensure that we are going into the right direction. When we're talking about product development process, no, and how do we develop, so we're talking about like the different steps that we really take to develop any type of software or software product that we're doing, no? We talk about like the develop, design, test, and launch as some of the steps that you have to do to launch any product. Some of the things that we have to do when we are developing a new product are the following. No? So as we were mentioning, we first need to start by identifying the problem or problems that we want to tackle. Out of those, we will size the opportunity. We will analyze how big this opportunity is. Do I need to focus on this opportunity? Which one actually goes more aligned with the strategy that I'm following? Which are my North Star metrics? Which are the KPIs that I'm focusing on? How can I make sure that this opportunity is bigger than others? Once you have that, you go into more like the hypothesis, assumptions, and ideation phase. So you start saying, okay, I think that this opportunity is actually focusing on this type of the problem. You start actually trying to figure out how big the impact of your initiative is going to take. You start ideating different type of solutions that you do not alone, obviously with your whole team, to really start thinking what is going to be the work that you're going to be doing. After that, you go into more of validation phase. No, so basically, this is what I'm planning to do. How am I going to do it? You can do research, analysis. You can go to the level of effort or feasibility, if this is possible, from a technical perspective. And once you know all of that, you can go into prioritization mode and really building your roadmap. After that, going into the defining exactly what you're going to do, doing the final designs, final discussions, keeping the stakeholders informed, and then you go into mode. If you work in an agile environment, you could go into simple model of build, launch, iterate, measure, and learn definitely what you're doing. This is something that I'm pretty sure that most of you know. So just one of the questions that I wanted to ask, and we can, if not, we do it with a Slido. Just I'll turn it into a yes or a no. It worked, yeah, audience. So basically, just going from a yes or a no. So raise your hand if you have super clear when you have to use an agile methodology versus a waterfall development process. Raise your hand if you have it like quite clear from very clear. Okay, no, very good. Raise your hand if you have no idea when to use an agile methodology for development versus a waterfall approach. Okay, so not many hands in both cases. And the rest, raise your hand if you're in the middle, so somewhat. Okay, so pretty much the majority. And in here, some of them are on the no one. So basically, this is actually going into something that it's been on the decision of like, am I building a product or a project that I know all the steps that I need to follow? This is predictable. I know how long it takes. I know how it's going to look. Or you are working in an unpredictable mode where you really need to experiment, iterate, because you do not know exactly what your client or customer wants. But if we go more into a product development process of no and low code, we are talking about a different thing. If we would be comparing waterfall approach versus agile, the first thing that many people come to their minds is like, agile is going to be faster. We're going to be iterating faster. But are we really iterating fast enough? Are we really developing something in the minimum time possible? Is the product that we are delivering the real minimum product to respond to the ideas that I have? No code and low code development is really a process that really allows to simplify a lot and accelerate any type of development for almost any type of application that you want to build. To really going from something that it's iterative and fast to something that could be really, really fast and without the need of like a big team of engineers or a lot of engineering or complexity of the work. So just so I know, have you anyone implemented any feature, any product using any no-code tools? Okay, so very few on the stage. And if I say low code, okay, a little less, perfect. So basically, I assume for this one, having that the majority have not used or developed anything on no or low code strategies, raise your hand if you do not know when when you should use no code and low code. Perfect. Cool. So now we're going to go into real business. Now we're going to be talking about a real story that I experienced that I hope it gives you clarity on when you should or how you can apply no and low code strategies in your day-to-day in any of the roles that you have, because any of the roles can be benefit from this. But this actually was led by product. So I joined a company called Lana. Was a spin-off of a company called Cabify that basically they have a big problem. They had a lot of new joiners that when they were joining in Latin America, they didn't have a bank account. And they created this spin-off company with the vision of really give fair access to financial services to everyone. A broad thing to really having as a vision and trying to really get more people into the financial ecosystem. The mission that the company had was really build financial product and services that the gig economy workers and underbanked people needed. So there were many products that some people could not have access to, like even creating a bank account. Sometimes it was a bit hard. The original target of the company was really focusing on gig economy workers. Talking of what we were mentioning before on the product strategy, there were some advantages. So if we consider competitive advantages, we were Cabify. So we had all the Cabify drivers in all Latin America. So just by starting, we have all the drivers could be a client. So it's a good way to start, iterate, explore, etc. The company spent almost a year and a half building an MVP that it wasn't an MVP, and it was more really following a waterfall approach, as I was mentioning, because it created a bank account with a free debit card. So basically, the product that the company built during the first year and a half, while it was completely part of Cabify, was a bank account similar. I don't know if you're familiar with Revolut, N26, Monzo, Bnext, those type of things, but focusing on Latin America and focusing on gig economy workers, starting only in Mexico, Chile, and Peru. And the idea or the assumptions that the company had was that, well, it is really hard to get a bank account in these countries. Like if you're not having a salary, they're going to charge you a lot of fees. So people don't want to open a bank account in Banco Central of Chile or things like that, because this is very expensive. And also, even if you get a bank account, you're not going to get any of the products. Nobody's going to give you a mortgage. Nobody's going to give you a loan, because your situation is pretty crap. Sometimes you make money, but they don't know how much money you're going to make. It is really unpredictable. So banks don't know this. So those were all the assumptions that they had. And then when I joined, basically the product was built and it started rolling. And what happened was this. We have a really nice debit card. We have a bank account that was free, which it was like almost the value proposition compared to all the others, but the retention was terrible. The retention really it was really hard. We were measuring retention based on the number of transactions that customers did. And we saw that basically we were calling ourselves the tube, because basically they were receiving their salary and it was just getting away to their bank accounts. Some of the assumptions that we took that were wrong was first, all the Cabify drivers at that moment already had a bank account. It was only a problem for the newbies, but the ones that were in Cabify, they already passed the hassle of really creating their bank account. And just by having a free account, it was a hard thing to really migrate their accounts and so on. So purely a free account was not enough. We needed to find something else. We needed to improve our value proposition. We needed to do something that customers would love and would want to stay in Lana. So we went to the amazing world of doing a super deep user research with our partner, MasterCard. MasterCard was the partner of Lana and the one that was doing the physical debit cards. And they had a lot of data, a lot of information about what other fintechs are doing, what our customers were using, and trying to really analyze the situation. After doing a full analysis and after having the research, the main claim was that all other fintechs were offering something else, not just a bank account. What we were calling the MVP was not enough. It wasn't enough to really keep people satisfied for something that everybody has. Everybody has a bank account, and it wasn't enough to really move things from their current bank account to ours and to use it as a regular bank account or debit card. So the conclusion was, we need to do another type of feature, another type of service. We need to build either a super app or a marketplace of products, and really going along with the strategy, we need to provide those products that they don't have access to. The main thing that they come up with is that after doing this analysis, they said, you know, the majority of your customers are Uber drivers, Cabify drivers, Bolt drivers, etc., and they all want discounts on gas stations. If you could get every time that you refill your car with a discount, you could retain them. This is the key thing. We've investigated. We are for sure know this, and we have to build it. So the first thing that the team did was, okay, so how do we do this? So first, the country manager in Mexico went to do a partnership with a gas station to really provide that percentage of discount. And after a month, he signed a deal with a company, a branch that it was quite known in Mexico, offering a discount that nobody else offered. It was around like 2-3%, sounded reasonable. And after that month, he said, we are ready. We only need to integrate with those. You know, you'll see that there are some problems because the transactions they have different branches and not all are the same name and so on. So you'll have to build something to really try to make this work. So the tech team analyzed it, did the refinement, and basically they built an MVP in 3 sprints, so 6 weeks. After doing that, there were like around like 3 weeks in total to really experiment and analyze the result. Just a little bit on the steps that we follow so that we can compare. So the things that we did was, first of all, signing the deal. Then we needed to define exactly a new microservice that we were going to use. So basically a new place so that we would create a marketplace. We could create what we call a micro app. So basically the app, if you can imagine, it was a mobile app. So we will have a new place where we will be adding new services. We would definitely need to modify the home screen of the app. We would need to be sure that the transactions of that gas station was the real transactions. So we needed to make sure that every transaction happening in one of those gas stations would have the discount. We needed to modify the transaction screen so that they see the discount on every transaction. We needed to modify the report screen so that they see the total amount saved. We needed to make the instrumentation, launch the experiment, and analyze it. What were the results? No improvement at all on retention, nothing. So we did a post-mortem research on like, why did this happen? No, they were so excited. We talked to them. We even talked to them directly. Some of the riders came to the office and said, yeah, we want this. And after that, we researched that, yeah, some of them were using it. Some of them weren't. Some of them preferred to pay more because they had a gas station that was closer to their home and it wasn't exactly the right time. And obviously we only had one gas station, so it wasn't all of them. And many of them had a preferred gas station that offered better prices than ours, even with a discount. No, so all of that came, and the CEO said, we say that we are agile, that this is actually super great, but we are not delivering. This doesn't make sense. We cannot test this. This is not fast, and we're taking too long to validate something that simple, no? But how can we validate things simpler? The country managers, we have a country manager in Peru, another in Chile, another in Mexico, and they were like super excited and anxious because they were really close to signing a lot of details, a lot of deals. So they were saying us like, we need to build an insurance service. We need to build a health chat service. We need to build a service to pay the electricity, the gas, etc. And it was like so many things. So how do we prioritize? How do we make this fast in a way that we can be sure that the products that we build are products that our customers want? And the reality is that first we had no idea what was going to work. There were so many potential things, and we started not believing a lot in the analysis that we have from the research, because one thing is what people say, and another thing is what people do when they're in front of a screen, when they have to pay for something, no? So we said, how do we do this? And how can we really iterate faster for validation purposes? And then we created the team of the Hacky Micro Apps. We had a motto that we call it, fake it until you make it. And we gathered together, myself with a designer, an ops lead of Mexico that was also managing the CRM team, and one software engineer. And we were saying, no, which questions do we want to ask? No? So do we really need to sign an agreement with a gas station to really see if riders are going to use it? Or can we really just don't care and we put the gas station and we start testing the prices and see if it really adds value or not? And with any other thing that we do. Do we know that the amount discounted that we need to really increase retention? Which other services we can do to really improve our conversion? No? And which products are the products that really, the riders and the economy workers will want? So we gathered together and we tried to create a flow that could build as many apps as we want for purely validation purposes. So this is when we started into the no and low code process. We knew that we had many questions, assumptions, and hypotheses to answer, but that we needed to gather a lot of data and really test a lot. So we wanted, in this particular case, it was a really good way to do it, because in reality, we didn't want to see like in the end, 6 months later, if they were using it, or 3 months later. We just wanted to see what is it going to be improving in the short term, things like the retention of our riders, improving like in the experience of the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, and also trying to understand interest and deciding which ones would make more sense. So now I will go into detail in each of those. So we basically combine certain tools to create a flow of low code, because in this particular case, and the main difference when we are using no code and low code strategies is that no code strategies allows you to build everything without a single line of code. And many of the cases you can do that. But in our way, we wanted to be integrated in the mobile app. We wanted to have some integrations that I'm going to be talking a little bit about it. So that's why we needed some small development. It wasn't a lot. And it requires some tweaks and changes to really complete the flow. So we basically needed to do the 6 steps that I put here. First of all, creating a common flow. So all products and services are going to be the same. How do we do the same? So basically, it's going to be a form where customers are going to enter and they are going to apply. And basically, we describe the product, and then they go to the final page and they say whether or not they want it. We are going to be connecting these flows with partners. Why? Because some of the flows we are going to use as a lead generator, because we want to see not only if they are interested in the product, we want to see if they finally buy it. The case, for instance, of insurances and things like that. So we want to see like the full analysis. We had some complex flows. So things that needed more information require any type of documentation. For instance, car rental. Car rental require a bit more of documentation. So we had some complex flows that we needed to build. We wanted to experiment. We wanted to analyze each of the funnels of each of the products and the services. We want them to pay. So one of the things, and this is super important also when you're doing this type of experiments, is that regardless what people say about how much they would pay for a product, nothing like really putting a check out the screen, entering your card and paying to validate if people are willing to pay and iterate on that. working on your price strategy. So nothing better than really tell people to pay to see that. We had Lana, so basically we were a wallet, so we have money for most of them, but there are also some important tools that you can use in no code that allows you really building a payment processor without having any idea how to code to really get into a payment mode. And we were connecting with partners, what I was mentioning, sending the information. So I'm gonna go a little bit into detail of this. So what is Webflow and what did we use it for? Not sure if you're familiar with Webflow, but Webflow is a tool that allows you to really build websites. So what we did is basically our mobile app was a native app, but we created this really as like web apps. These micro apps were all web apps that were all the same. So basically all the screen, we only changed the copies, and all of this actually came in an Airtable. So basically the title, the subtitle, the icons and everything came in an Airtable where we will actually pulling it from. And then we could create, we were saying that we created micro apps as churros all the time. So every day we were creating 3 or 4 new ones just for experimentation. And it was a matter of just changing the product. It was like 3 steps of the process: the description process, the detail, and then the final one to apply or pay if there was a payment process. And we use basically the combination of Webflow for Airtable. Anytime that we create a new table, it could go into the app. One of the things, what I was mentioning that it was low code is because in the app, if you see the app that I was showing in earlier, we had like the different icons and the different micro apps. So it was actually reading from our table to add new apps or remove them whenever we wanted to do it. We use Make to really automate processes. We actually use Make for many things, but basically Make updated their table with more information when it was happening. Make is a tool that really allows you to connect and integrate a lot of things. So you can, and you can even create like jobs. So saying like, run this every 5 minutes, or run this when this event happens, or be reading our Airtable, and if you find a new enter, update our database. There were actually many things that we were doing, and we use it to really update our tables with all the leads. We were connecting it to SendGrid for lead generation, so we automatically would be sending the new leads to our customers. And we use it to really for instrumentation. So every time that things were happening, we were connecting to Segment and sending the events that I will explain now a little bit what it was Segment. And it was also doing the payment request. So the first iterations of the micro apps didn't even have the payment itself. So if it required payment, so we basically from Make would create a link, would send it through email with a payment link that they could enter and pay, so that we could validate in the end very easily if people were willing to pay. How did we use Segment, Braze, and Amplitude? Well, the ones that you know me, you know that I'm a really fan of tools like Segment. So basically, Segment is a data center where you can really instrument your events, and then from there you can send it everywhere. And we use it for so many things. We have many destinations. But in the case of these micro apps, we were using it for 2 main reasons. One was actually the analysis and the experimentation tool that we were using Amplitude. So that basically in Amplitude, we're seeing all the micro apps with all the funnels of conversion with everything that it was happening, but also on the experimentation comparison of what each one actually was performing, so that we could wake up every day, see which apps are performing bad and remove them or modify them, changing the copies, modifying the prices, etc. In a matter of seconds. And this could be done from any one of the teams. So this could be done by the designer, by the ops. You didn't need an engineer, you didn't need a product person. Anybody could go in Amplitude. We knew the threshold that we had, remove or add the new apps. And then Braze, we use it for automations of all the communications. So basically what I was mentioning before, all the communications that the customer was receiving, like sending them reminders, requesting them for more documents, etc. All of that, we did it through Braze to really automate the full process. So what happened? So we actually were able in 3 weeks to launch more than 20 type of products. It was a bit of a nightmare because our use base at that moment, I think it was around like 40K users. So we didn't have like the amount of millions that we have in Glovo that really is super statistically significant to do your test. So there is a little bit of like trying to say, okay, how it's performing, divide your audience. And obviously each experience was different. We could even target one of the things that we had in Airtable. I didn't put it, but it was, we defined like targets and segments in our table so that we can see who is gonna be seeing one product or not, depending on certain parameters that we enter. But in the end, you're going to be affected. If you have 5 products, it's more likely that you see one than if you have 10, and things like that happen, obviously. So it was, we probably didn't have enough volume to really do a proper validation of 20 products. However, many great things happen from those, and many things in a matter of 3 weeks, we saw like super interesting. The first one is that among all the products that we have, there was one that it was actually an idea of one of the local regional team that said, you know, what we have to do is basically giving them a SIM card with free data for using Google Maps and Waze, and when they're using Uber or Cabify, because they have they struggle a lot with having data. We know that some of them turn off the data, some of them didn't have data enough. So why don't we offer them the Lana SIM card with free data for all the apps that we have. We didn't, at that moment, I didn't even know that we could do that. So later on, we saw that it was doable, but we did that, and we actually did it in a way that we were not giving you the SIM card. So we were just basically saying, hey, do you want to have it? So you have to send us your name, your phone number, etc. Submit the form, and we'll do it for you. And we created and everybody enter in a waiting list that basically wasn't for anybody. So it was just to see what the people wanted. This one was massively accepted. So everybody wanted that much that now I'll go into what we did, but it actually changed a little bit what we had to do. Another thing that we did is we experimented with microlending. So we did a very simple exercise of giving them small amounts of money, like 20 euros, 50 euros, things like that, so that they have to return. The full process was super manual, not even with our table. So we were using spreadsheets for this one to really manage it and knowing who was actually giving the money back. But we definitely saw like also a massive interest on this one. It also allows us to really do a few other things that were super interesting. The first one was price experimentation. So we experimented a lot with different prices for like gas station and also groceries in the different supermarkets. We basically didn't have any real deal. We just told them, hey, you're going to have 5%, 10%. And then we were doing the calculations, starting which percentage everyone accepted. And then we were giving that money back manually at the end of the month to see exactly how it was. And then what we were seeing is basically, are really these people that accepted a certain discount really going to that grocery to do their stores? Are we changing their behavior or not? And the bad thing of this experimentation is that basically for the price that you can really move people, it's really hard unless you have a really good deal with the gas stations or groceries, that it's really hard to reach in terms of like the revenue share that you can have. Also, another interesting thing is that we saw a thing that we didn't think about it at the beginning because we were thinking more in which product we need to build, and it's to become a lead generator. So why do we really need to offer an insurance with a full process and so on, which is more complex, and then having different insurance providers, updating the documentation? Why not becoming a lead generator? So basically we were receiving leads and passing it to like insurance companies, travel companies, and many other companies that were offering different services. And if they sign the deal, then we get the money for it. So that was actually a good thing that we learned that we could do, and we didn't know it at the beginning. Another thing that we saw is basically automating the process of paying certain services. That was actually quite good because this was actually driving also an important retention. So whenever you sign up, something that in Spain is more common, like it's easy to pay your phone or it's easy to pay your electricity or your gas, but it's not that common in some countries. And basically having this process automated was kind of like a good thing, that once you have it in your account, it becomes your main account, which is what we were looking for. And we were actually tested a lot of products with like different discounts for the day-to-day job, like equipment, things for their bikes, etc. That actually helped us understand and see how it was performing. So now with all this data and all these things, which is a little bit of a mess. So now what? Now what do we do? So we've tested more than 20 micro apps. We have the data. What happened with the code that you built in no code or in low code? Now it's time to like get rid of everything and then build it for real, or what do you do? So as I was mentioning, we identified those two products that were really massively acquired, the lending and SIM card. And we decided on those two that we wanted to really build products out of it. Lending actually became the #1 thing for the company. So we even created a product team specifically for lending. And it was actually a whole different story, but we realized how important it was lending to really create an account for gig workers giving them access to something that they had a really hard time to have access, which is really money on when they need it. The other thing, it wasn't that big in terms of development, but it was actually a bit more complex than the others, which was the SIM card. So we partnered with a company that created like virtual SIM cards. And basically we needed to integrate, because if you want to have your SIM card accessing your account, we need to show them how much money you're going to be paying, all your invoices, etc. So we needed a little deeper integration, and we really built it for real. But some of their products remain always as hacky micro apps. We kept this as a thing as a mindset for the company, that whenever we want to test something, we would build a hacky micro app to validate it. And some of them remain as hacky micro apps, like all the ones of lead generator and everything. It was working perfectly. So it wasn't crashing, nothing to change. We could modify them whenever we want. So we didn't need a product. And some of those were adding value and revenue for the company. So that was actually quite okay. And some of those, we tried to evolve them into a low code mode, because the form was okay, but you needed maybe some integrations with a partner. We have one with a health chat app that you could actually enter, submit the form, and start talking to a doctor, and other things and services that we wanted to offer that require a bit more of code, but it was exactly on the same principle, and it was partly on the no-code screens that we built, and partially on really development that we were doing. So what were the key takeaways, and what are the things important that I would like you to remember from the use of no-code and low-code tools? First is that no matter what your product development process is, no matter if you're working in a very predictable world, working with a waterfall approach, working with agile methodologies, or you need to do any type of like really fast velocity, to really have a good structure and well-defined product strategy is key. Because if you don't have it, you don't know exactly which direction to go. What is the real important thing that you have to accomplish? Another important thing is that no code is not for every use case. So don't think like, oh, let's the CEO after this decided like, I want to do everything no code. So let's don't build anything else. Let's build landing no code and everything, because this is like super fast and so on. That doesn't work like that. So there is a lot of risks on building no code tools. Like you cannot add complexity, a lot of complexity. You may need to like access different data, analyze it. So the process and the flows are not that simple. So use it when you really need the speed over quality. Use it when there is a lot of uncertainty, when you really want to go into an experimentation mode, then it makes a lot of sense. Also something for us to learn is that do it when you have enough volume to test and experiment, no? And if you try to do too many experiments, maybe you do not have info enough, no? So try to do it when you really can afford it. And also another question that I've been also having is like, when you build something in no and low code, do you have to like remove it afterward? That's technical debt. That's technical debt that we're gonna have to remove. I don't know if you're all familiar with the concept of technical debt, but basically part of the code that in the end you may build it in a faster way, or the approach has changed. So you basically at a certain moment you know that you will have to refactor. The no-code and low-code features don't have to become technical debt depending on how your business is evolving. So I've seen many apps working purely low-code, and basically the entire product almost built in low-code. So it really depends on how you're using it, how it's evolving. Just one example that happens is that after doing this, like as I was mentioning, the CEO really wanted everything in no-code. We built the entire customer support process in no-code. So we built a contact tree that was connected to our customer support, and we didn't have anybody in product modifying that. So it was basically the customer support team. They were actually every week, they were reviewing the tickets, they were seeing the priorities, they were coming to the contact tree, modifying the order, modifying the reasons, adding new reasons, and so on. They manage it everything by themselves, which in many other teams, I haven't seen that. No, so I've seen a team working for contact and support, whereas our contact support team was owned by themselves, like as product managers and PMs, like nobody cared, because they were able to own it, and they were able to reduce contact radio and many other things by themselves without the need of anything in coding. Just I put here some no-code tools that I mentioned in case that you would like to build something. So you can find it online. I think that some of them are very useful. Some of them are cheaper. Some of them are more expensive and not very easy or accessible for I don't know, a personal project or anything. But there are many tools for almost everything in terms of like no code. So if you check it and look at it, there are a lot of things that you can do and a lot of things that you can build for yourself. So before, that was a Slido question, but I'll do it on this one. So I just wanted to see, like, raise your hand if now you feel that you understand a little better when to use no and low code. That's a really good one. Perfect. So thank you so much. So now time for Q&A for you, if you have any questions.
Hi. Perfect. What happens if you validate, say you send out to 1,000 customers and then 100 of those customers say, yes, I want it, that makes sense. But then 100 in comparison for the 1,000, that doesn't mean that the product is validated. So what do you do? How do you communicate with these 100 that wanted to have it, but then you need to tell them no?
You mean like if you do not have enough people to validate your hypothesis, or what do you do with the customers that really wanted the product and if you ended up not doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a case that it happened. So we had some of the products that we didn't build it, and basically most of the times we communicated and we said, you know, this project has been discontinued. So it wasn't a big issue because they were just, most of the time they were just applying for things that they were on a waiting list, etc. The products where it really seemed that they were getting, we were able to, even if we do not develop further, find a partner or somebody that we could connect. In the end, you have somebody who wants to buy something, so it wasn't that hard to find them the right partner and lead them.
Hey. So what are some of the risks of implementing and keeping some of that low code or no code?
So yeah, first of all, is that this can actually become a monster if you iterate on no and low code. And that's actually something that I've seen. The case of the customer support that I was mentioning, so at the very beginning, it's a contact tree, but then later maybe you want to start adding Gen AI, or you start wanting to add something more complex, right? And then you say, yeah, but I have this in no code, and then I'm going to be adding something on top, and I'm going to start mixing it, and now I'm going to connect to the database instead of their table. It depends on how it evolves, and if you really need to change it. At the moment that you're changing it a lot, and that it goes beyond purely UI or things like that, I think it's a moment to rethink if it makes sense on it. Then on the other side, like the risk on really having things in no code that you are not modifying as much, I don't see a big risk on keeping it as something on the code that you are not updating. The problem is when it requires a lot of changes and it's actually something that you're still on experimentation mode.
Did you bring any of the no code and low code ideas to Glovo that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I think Glovo is an interesting case, and mainly, as I was mentioning, I'm the GPM in Courier. So I think in Courier in the past, because it comes from a very operational mindset, there is a similar practice as no code that I would call like a spreadsheet mode, where many of the things really come with a spreadsheet connected to Zapier, connected to something that goes into our table and so on. So there is a mindset of it. The only problem is that I think it's more very coming from an operational mindset, which is a little different of a product mindset when you build products. No, so it's about like how to execute now, very tactical, very short term, and there is a thing on how can you move forward, and that I haven't done anything yet really no code or low code yet, but something that definitely could be a good thing to have. But there is a lot of these tools that you've seen here that are used in Glovo.
And when just because we are running a little bit out of time, just before your question, maybe one more question, okay? And then we'll move to another talk, okay?
Sure.
Cool.
Hi, so it looks like you were using many different tools and a lot of people had access to those tools, and those tools cost some money. I have no idea how much it cost. Was the cost ever a concern that people start adding tools with no control, or that if you want to maintain a project over a long term, that cost starts adding up?
So that's a good question. So we did not get any specific of these tools, and let me clarify, because of this. So we didn't get to start paying for these tools just to be no code driven. Cases like Brace, which is quite expensive, or Amplitude that becomes quite expensive, those tools we already use them for other reasons. The majority of the tools that we are using, like Make or Webflow, etc., we were using really like the cheapest versions that we had. So we didn't ended up paying a lot more. So we didn't encounter a case. The only case was Brace, because when we actually started using it a lot with this, that we needed to go to the next layer of our payment, and we decided to move it. But because it was a company decision, so it wasn't only for this. It was a tool that we wanted to use as a CRM. I think it's good. So I think now it's time for Alvaro.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alvaro. I don't have a fancy slide to present myself, but I'm working as product manager here in Glovo and taking care of the search journey. If you're a customer and you search, that's probably on me. So one of the things that I have reflected for a lot of times is, why do you need a product strategy? Are they valuable or they aren't, right? So what we are going to talk today is some definitions, and then one example of product strategy and company strategy that was executed in one of my previous jobs that I found super enriching for myself. Someone that I see some ex-college from Eventbrite, so they will be able to relate and comment if I'm saying something that is misleading. So first, defining a strategy. Okay, so when you search in Google for a strategy, you're going to find a lot of different exceptions that come up in search results. It's going to be about compete. It's going to be about winning. It's going to be about a plan. But at the end, if you start to thinking on what you are talking about when you refer to strategy, is getting customers and generating customer value. And that's something that you cannot control. You hope that you are going to present something in front of your customers that they are going to prefer versus the competition, right? So to me, one of the key things when I review product strategies or anything on strategies is, are these guys just making a plan, or are these persons trying to increase our customers or try to avoid the existing customers churn, and how they plan to do it, right? So I usually work on these three verticals, which is customer, identify who are your customers. And that's a big decision that you need to take. And we will see some examples later that you are not Google, you are not Amazon, you are not Meta. So you are going to, based on the resources that you have, identify where are the customers that are going to provide the highest return of investment. Then you're going to have your competitors. And in the same way that I was explaining earlier, your competitors and players they are going to provide a lot of information to you on how to steer your product. Bruno was talking about no product strategy. Sorry. What happens if he had another player that was doing something similar? He could have saved some of the time. I'm not saying that, but he could have saved some of the time by just looking at the competitors. And then you're going to find some competitors that indeed are not real competitors. And then you have the context. So you cannot neglect that based on how the economics are going, how the industry trends, and what technical disruptions are happening, you will need to adapt your strategy. So probably all of you that work on tech now are getting a question from your top level, hey, what are we going to do with ChatGPT? How are we going to leverage that? And that's something that you cannot answer in 1 minute. So it's, hey, are we going to implement this at the company level? Is it only going to be on my unit? How are we going to support that? So it has a deep conversation. So if you want to keep anything, it's a conscious decision. You need to go through a process to identify pros and cons in order to draft your strategy, okay? So a strategy, how that works. Strategy always works from the company level. Is the company the one that needs to define the strategy for the company, and that it will cascade down to the organization and to the product. And then in the product, you can have your feature strategy, which is, as product managers, the most thing that we deal with. You are going to have growth. If you are a growth PM, then you will be there. And then you are going to have technology. Deciding what technology is going to support your product strategy is also super important, which means that you need to collaborate with all this kind of people. Why everything starts from the company or a company level? I always get two responses. Response number one is because the people that run the company are much more clever because they have more visibility and know our customers and competition and context better, so they are able to perform or to provide better responses. Or second, in small companies, is because the owner owns the company and he has the right to decide where to put the eggs. Okay, which really get to understand that really pissed me off in my early years. And then you have some outcomes from the strategy, and that's usually what the people point you. So an outcome is a plan. It's goals and it's reorganizations. You always need to think, if I'm taking product changes and I'm changing the strategy, how that's going to affect my product team. Okay, but if you ask me, those are operations. If you have your strategy well crafted, all those things can change without changing the nature of the approach. Now let's review some of the examples from companies. So we're going to have some small cases. Lyft, I don't know if all of you know it, but it's kind of Uber. They only operate in US, in Canada. They mainly work with casual users, like have a fancy ride, while Uber is much more focused in business people segment. They are currently operating in 73 countries, and both of them, they launch within the same year or with 1 year apart. If you think from this company strategy, what they are trying to achieve, when you try to go down into the product strategy, you're going to think completely different, right? If you are in Uber, what you are going to think, scalability. I need to make things that I'm able to scale in all countries for all languages and for a lot of people, because I'm targeting business guys. They will be traveling. I want to provide service in all the countries that happen. And probably you're going to have a huge volume of drivers and customers. While if you are in Lyft, that is more close, is, hey, I need to focus on having a good quality of experience, making sure that I can retain my drivers, because those are the ones that are going to make that our customers come back. And then when you look at prices, this is the main difference between these two companies, because when you actually look at the app and the promos and the driver, they have similar features, is the price. Lyft, they cap the maximum price by 2, so you will never pay more than 2 times the average price. Where in Uber, that you have business people that are more willing to pay more, the price can go up to 9 times. Okay, so over the years that they have operated, this is from the last fiscal results. Lyft is still with negative numbers, minus 237 millions. And Uber is, for the first time, they have a positive operating cash flow. If you need to change from Lyft to Uber, just think on all the amount of things that they will need to happen. It's not only product, it needs to be a company strategy decision, and it's going to incur in a lot of pain. Second case, this is one of my favorites because it's super funny. So I guess that all of you know Slack, you know Teams, and you know Discord. And what is important here is that because you have people providing services in your same segment, that doesn't mean that those are your competitors. Those are players. Competitors is someone that provides similar service to the same people that you are providing services actively. If they are not taking or looking after those customers, they are players, they are passive. So one of the good things when you identify your customers is that you can compete with them, but you can also partner with them. Think on what I said previously with Uber and Lyft. If they offer similar apps, similar functionalities, is more like, or customers will most likely transition to one of those services because they are familiar with than going to the taxi. Or think on a street when you see a lot of restaurants or retail shops, is that same approach. Let's be able to get more customers from the potential ones into actual customers by homogenizing product, okay? Or standards from cables or all of that. So basically Slack, what they did, they, on 2016, they published an ad in the New York Times full page. And they were telling Microsoft that they were late, that is not the features that matter, so then don't try to copy us. That in order to win in the new collaboration paradigm, an open platform is essential. Okay, because it's how the humans do the job. Back in the time, trying to improve or connect with Microsoft apps was a pain on the ass. And then the last one was you don't know anything about this new work paradigm, so you will need to build your way in the same way that we did. Okay, what happened here? Microsoft, that by that time was thinking on acquiring Slack, decided not to acquire Slack because it was not a good product fit for the company. And they launched Teams. Okay, Teams, basically a cheap copy if you want to think on Slack, but Microsoft knew very well that they have penetrated across all the business segment, small companies, big companies, medium companies. Those companies were already using Office tools. So if you have a big mass, what you can do, you can provide a low price entry. I think that getting the basic Office with Teams was $4, and Slack by that time were $8. So COVID hits, you see how Teams daily average users increased by a lot, while Slack, they were focused in these small countries or these small companies, sorry, and they have kept growing, but they couldn't grow as fast as Microsoft was doing. Even if they could, just imagine on what means from going from a mid company to a big company. Think on the process that you need to adapt in order to use Slack. Think on the security policies that you need to comply with. Think on the privacy. So if you are a CTO or IT manager and you need to take that decision, most likely you want to stick with Microsoft that you already know, that works at the corporate level, and is not going to provide you any headaches. Okay. Now, pausing a little bit, what is a good strategy? So good strategy, it has 4 components. It has trade-offs, as we mentioned, is telling what are the customers that you are going to focus on. And it's important that the trade-offs are at the customer level. If you have a strategy that says we are going to invest in feature A, B, and C, but don't mention why you are doing that and what are the customers that are going to be affected, you are not working on a strategic paradigm because you own those resources. You can decide what to work. So if you start there, always ask yourself why and who is going to be impacted and who is going to be get left out. Then you have visibility. Once you create your product strategy, company strategy, you need to cascade. You need to inform everyone. You need to be poking every possible door and saying, this is my product strategy, this is my product strategy, because if they don't have visibility, you're going to have a huge problem with the third, which is fits. Okay, fits is that when you have a well-aligned product strategy, all the different organizations on teams are going to jump on board that ship. Or you want, or you might find that there are a lot of synergies with product strategies from other areas. And last but not least, it provides a horizon. So this is good to create a time urgency. If your strategy is going to last forever, then you will never be able to accelerate things at the pace that you want. Last example, Meta and the metaverse. So these guys, I think that they own all potential apps and customers to make this product successful. They have invested $100 billion on metaverse, and the last year it was $15 billion. Those are the guys that have acquainted the term product sense. So they are really capable company. But last, I think what last December was Zuckerberg that said that they are shooting down Meta. So, hey, company with that big, how, like, what possibly could be wrong? I don't know. What I know is the impact. The VP of Meta said that people were not using their product. Indeed, only 58% of Facebook employees were using or logging to the metaverse. The share price dropped by 25%, which, if I recall correctly, is around 80 billions at that time. And to me, what was missing here is, okay, Meta gives me an opportunity, but if the company that needs to have their strategy in Meta doesn't have any strategy, they're never going to get a content. They're never going to drive customers into that metaverse. So despite that, probably these guys have everything aligned and all the teams were focused on this. Sometimes your strategy relies on your customers or relies on your partners to do something. And if they don't see value, they're not going to do it. That's it on the basics. And now let's go to Eventbrite. So Eventbrite is an American event management company. They sell tickets and other services. And basically it connects creators, so people that they want to host some events, with people that they want to attend those events. They range from music, business. They also have a stand-up comedy. They have art. So everything that you can think of, you can find in Eventbrite. What were the two main things of this company? It was sales-led. So they were trying to go after big events that happen maybe once a year. Just think on a Coldplay event that, hey, I want to organize all the ticket sales. And because of this, all the product was focused on creating dirty hacks to adapt the solution to serve this unique customer. Okay. What happens? It happens COVID. So think on a company that around 70 to 80% of the events were in person. So you had to attend to the event, and suddenly you have COVID. So it was 90% drop in revenue all of a sudden, and 45% of the team was laid off. What is your strategy here? And the CPO at that time was Casey Winters. He's a really interesting person in the product area to follow and read about. He has made a lot of companies successful. And if you read his post, what he said is, in these situations, you don't have a strategy. You put all the chips in. You go all with all that you can, because you cannot get to a point that the company dies. And you said, I could have done more. So what they did, they changed everything to work in virtual events. They improved refund system to make sure that people could get their money back. They even allow people like creators to wire money, where traditionally you have to have the funds in the platform. They implement ways to postpone events indefinitely, and they provide even financial advices. Hey, if you are struggling and you want to get a loan, you need to do A, B, C, D, and E. They managed to survive COVID, and then the company created a new strategy. And this new strategy was simple. Most of the strategy should be simple, in my opinion, because you need to understand them. It's a consumer marketplace. During this period, they realized that majority of the revenue was not coming for these big players that hosted one event in the year. It was coming for small creators, people that were doing a stand-up comedy, but they did it every month or every 2 weeks. Okay, so it was a lot of small people doing repeating events in the platform. And from there, they saw that these guys struggled to market the product. They were one company person. They were managing the finances, the marketing, the event organization. And they said, okay, if we have a platform, we have all the intelligence, why don't we help these people? So they focus on consumer marketplace, making sure that for small creators, they provided a really easy to use tool so they can come back and grow their business with Eventbrite. They decided to prioritize things on marketing so we can help them market their events better. And then they decide to go on a self-service model. You remove all big companies, you're going to let every of these creators do everything that they need by themselves, which of course will create a lot of churns with big companies. In reality, there was always some exceptions, but the good things about this, as we were talking before, is that when during the middle of the process, some of the teams were changing roadmaps and they were getting moved from doing accounting, moved to doing marketing, there was no many questions from the team and the product team, because we knew what were the priorities for the companies and what needed to happen to make the company survive. They also reflected a lot on the vision. In every all hands, they were going through the strategy, telling how we were progressing in the strategy. And if you read, because it's a public traded company, if you read their conversation with investors, they also come and emphasize about their company strategy. So it was great. So it's like, hey, I know the frame. I know what do I need to do to operate? What customers do I need to track? What is going to be the priorities? And honestly, I have never been in such a well-organized place. Of course, you always are going to have issues that get out of control. So this is, for example, the roadmap. They divided the initiatives in 3 slots. One was making sure that we have the frequent creators, that they can easily use our app. Then next year we will focus on marketing tools. And when we have all our platform ready, let's do attendees. Platform from a technical perspective was a monolith, and they needed to migrate to a more modern approach. So that was going to happen during the 3 years. And even though every year we didn't finish what was intended to be finished, we completed majority of the most important things, the ones that are going to actually get the customers that you are looking for. Okay. And that company strategy came to my pillar, my team, which was the finance cluster. Okay, so what happens when you receive a company strategy? You need to analyze that company strategy. You cannot execute a company strategy because the CEO tells you so. You need to adapt your features, you need to adapt your growth model, you need to adapt your technology in order to comply with that. What we look at the customer level? Well, we first identified that even though we were going to focus on small customers, for us, it made much more sense to support new customer acquisition. Okay, so remember that we go back from COVID, a lot of people, they stopped doing events. Now all that people is going to come back. And we need to support the solution in a way that they fall in love when they do their merchant board, they're setting their bank account, it's easy, that they can receive funds, that if they need to do any refund, they are not going to have any problem. So even the company decided, hey, you need to focus on these customers. We went down and say, okay, from this list of customers, who are going to be our top priority? And we decided that new customers were going to be our top priority. The second thing was profitability. We needed to make money. So we look at all the ways that we allow customers to get paid and decide to remove some of them. And the last one was fraud alert. We were doing a lot of manual checks, and aligned to having more customers, we need to industrialize that. What we decide here is that it was not actually giving too much value to our customers. So we start looking for third-party partners that can provide us with the functionality that we needed in order to industrialize this. And what happened during that year? We basically didn't ship much. We removed things. So as a product manager, we are always thinking on what to add, but you need to stop and think on what can you remove. And the key here that is to connect with what Bruno was presenting is for each of the features that you own, you need to have a clear expectation on product market fit. okay, product market fit is this feature being used by our customers? Has still potential to grow, or it doesn't have any potential to grow? So how do you usually do this? Is you go to your features, you list them, and then you check if your customer service talks about, like any of your customers talks about this feature. If it's mentioned in any of the user research, you go to the competitors or players and you see how do they do these kind of things and what type of momentum are there. So if they are growing as crazy, that's, in our case, that was a good sign. But if they have established market of customers, that was probably not the best approach to follow. So what we did is we scrapped entirely completely the onboarding system. We started from scratch. And one of the decisions that was taken at that moment is that we need to reorg our teams, because we have a lot of technical debt that we needed to solve, and we couldn't complete point one unless we have a team that is completely free to start developing these kind of features. So some teams get kind of the scrap thing, and we were able to execute on completely new code and new technology. Then we started one of the payout methods that was PayPal, which was not profitable to Eventbrite. And again, we look at, how many customers are using this and in what countries? We knew that US and UK were going to be the main drivers on new user acquisition and user retention in the long term. So for all the other countries that they were important, but not as much as these two countries, we went brutally. We said by that date, we are going to stop providing you access to PayPal, so you need to migrate now. For the other countries, it was much more gradual. We allowed more time. So thinking on customers and their value and when to execute is an important thing on the trade-offs. Then we revisit some of the early cash out policies that we had in place for a long time, and we realized that they didn't make any sense. So we kill everything and we make it much more easy to access early cash outs for good practitioners. And then the last one, which is the fourth, is that we replace our Know Your Customer KYC. It's compliance with a third-party provider that will also allow us to grow in the future with new financial services. And that's it. Any question?
Just wasn't clear. Were you at Eventbrite when COVID happened?
I joined after COVID happened.
Okay. So like, what was it a deliberate decision for them then that like, we're not going to make any money now and that's how we're going to kind of reset our operations, or how do they process that crazy time, I wonder?
From COVID, I think that it was a survive mode. All the data is on the Casey Winters blog, so you can go and read it. And he also has a fun anecdote that he called the CEO of Shopify, and he asked, "Hey, dude, what are you going to do?" And he said, "We are going to do everything the same that we did." I think that they were in such a panic situation that it was not about make money. It's, hey, let's try to keep this open and running. 90% drop in sales is huge.
Okay, cool. That was my question.
Let's assume it's not COVID, so normal days. How often do you review and adjust strategy? Is there a best practice, assuming that the outside is constant?
That's a good question. And I will always ask the company if something has changed. So if your company strategy doesn't adjust, you don't need to adjust your product strategy, right? There are things like now ChatGPT. A couple of years ago, it was blockchain that will require you to reassess whether the company strategy is still going to capture the customers that you're looking for and eager for, right? Some companies, they do it on a yearly basis. Other companies, they have 3 years plan. Back in the days, it was 5 or 10 years plan. But to me, a product strategy helps me going through that process when you need to plan what's coming in the next planning or big planning every semester or every year. If you have your strategy well crafted, that process should be flawless, okay? Because you don't need to start looking for customer, for anecdotes, hey, what has worked, what has not worked, and it's more about looking at the product feature fit, growth strategies, and technology and technology. Okay, but to answer your question, let's say once every year.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's no more questions, pizza time, guys.
Thank you, Alvaro, and thank you all very much for coming and actively participating, asking questions. And thank you, Bruno and Alvaro, for excellent presentations. Can we give them another round of applause, please? Thank you. Now, as you know, feedback is a gift. So I know pizzas are waiting. There are also some beers and other snacks. But please, please, I know you have your phones. I see you having your phones. Correct. Yes, thank you. Please give us, fill out the very short survey, help us improve, let us know what you thought. And we are very much hoping to see you again soon. Thanks a lot and enjoy the mingling and pizzas. And yeah, if you have any questions to any of the speakers or your peers, feel free to approach. Thanks a lot.